In this exercise, we're going to be discussing creating circular patterns. To create a circular pattern, we go up to Circular Pattern Command under the Pattern panel in the ribbon. And it's pretty simple. We select our objects, and then we select our rotational axis. And you can see there's several different options we can choose for our rotational axis. On this part, since everything is concentric, it doesn't really matter what we choose because it's going to automatically choose that same center point. Then we take and we choose how many patterns we want. We could even do a smaller amount, do say 180 degrees, or if we knew what kind of pattern we were wanting to do there, say 75. If I do 8, go back to 360, or even 180 here, I can decide if I wanted to go in one direction or both directions. If you do 360, you'll notice it doesn't really matter which way you go because, of course, 360 is 360. If you do like 90, we'll reduce them down here. You can decide, do you want this to be the middle out or do you want to go one way or the other? Just like the rectangular patterns, we have our creation methods, whether we want to do identical, optimize, or adjust. For the most part, this doesn't matter on this exercise. As you can see, hit OK. So now you can see my nice little pattern in there. Creates kind of a snowflake looking thing. It's pretty straightforward. The nice thing about any patterning is we can suppress some of the patterns. If I come back over here to this rectangular pattern exercise we did earlier, and I go to the circular pattern here, and you'll notice I grabbed the whole thing, didn't mean to. So if I just select back on feature, hold down Control, and deselect it. I'm trying to grab that little bitty hole right there. Make sure I grab just the hole. And then for the rotational axis, I'm going to grab this circle here. I'm going to type in 8. I don't really want 8 holes here, but I want the location of the 8 holes. So I hit OK here. And then what I can do is I can come in here and find those 2 holes, right click on them and say suppress. So now I can have 6 of the 8 holes, but in the 8 hole pattern. I have ran into this where it's necessary to do it because of things like this. I've also ran into where it's necessary if this pattern was really close to this edge and it was going to cut off one of the holes. I may suppress that hole just because I don't want it to be cut in half, or I don't want it to come in here and interfere with my wall. There's various reasons you may want to suppress that, but you can suppress those. The same goes for if we come back over and recreate our rectangular pattern that we did in a previous exercise. Once again, make sure you don't select the whole part. Make sure you select just that little bitty piece there. And if I recreate this 5 and 15, I think it was, go up here, 4 and 8, hit OK. I can do the same thing on here. I could come in here and I could say, okay, this hole, and this hole, for whatever reason, need to be suppressed. So you could have something that looks like that. So you can use suppress to be a very powerful tool. For the most part, circular pattern is, to me, easier to use than the rectangular pattern. There's not a whole lot of options in here. There's not a whole lot of choices. It's very simple to use. Don't overthink any of the patterning. It's a very quick and easy way to reuse data as much as possible. Don't recreate the wheel anywhere. Try to reuse data any way you can and save yourself the trouble. Now, one of the options here would have been to pattern this in the sketch. To me, it's easier to pattern it as the feature because if I pattern this as the sketch, I would have to come in here and select. See here, I've got 6, 12 slots, and then I've got 4 times 6, so 24 holes. So I'd have to come in and select every one of these if I were doing this in a sketch. Whereas if I do it as a feature, I can just select 6 holes and then take and pattern the feature. So there are some benefits there. Also, I've found sometimes it's easier if you pattern the feature calculation-wise, because you can do the one feature that doesn't take up very much calculations. You do it and you're done. Then you do the pattern. It may take a while, but it won't take up as much time as if you have to go in and edit it. Because if you have to go in and edit every one of them individually or as an entire pattern, it can use a lot of memory to go in there and edit those in a real complex part. So by editing a single feature and then it being patterned, it saves you a little bit of rework time. So down the road, it's easier for me to draw it once and pattern it. Try to remember that, play with this, and see what trouble you can get into here, and have some fun with it. Don't overthink anything in patterning. It is that easy to use.